that coffee? Yeah. All right. So, who's over there? Anasava, is that you?
Anasava.
Okay, did you make a half a cup maybe this month?
Anasava, Kusang asked if you're making a half a cup.
This coffee is,
Old.
It's okay, I'm old.
If I'm telling you though, if Adaraj had his hands on the side, we can't let you touch it.
Oh, he made the coffee? Are these lights available? Let's turn these lights on. Yes, beloved. Yes, beloved. Just a half a cup, not even quite a half a cup.
Okay.
Water it down a little bit.
Okay.
See, I told you, this boy's trying to hurt us.
Oh, God. How are you, beloved? Huh? You don't know, right? That's what you're here to find out, right?
I'm going to put some hot water in here for you because it's a little strong.
See?
All right, thank you, beloved.
Did Adaraj make that?
I don't know. You been over there?
did Anuraj make the hot water too?
Said Ronnie done swore off the coffee. She won't drink no more coffee.
My portable coffee is filled for a while. This man's coffee. I want to test my kidneys. All I have to do is drink some of your coffee.
Oh, God. So this is why Starbucks can make so much money, right? Guys like him.
Here you go.
All right. We have a couple of more minutes to, and then we'll get started. We have a full agenda today. Now that you all have entered into the considerations and done your some yamas and thought about love and all these good things, it paves the way now. So let's enjoy this beautiful morning. Isn't this a beautiful morning?
Yes.
I mean, if nothing else goes right, you know, at least God has done his part, isn't he? He's giving you the day.
She got Brahmaji.
And Brahmaji is in the house. God is here. Welcome, God. Yes. Well, I trust everybody got some rest. Yesterday was quite a long day for you rascals, but hopefully you've had a good night rest and a good morning's meditation. You didn't have a good night's rest, beloved?
Oh, he didn't sleep. You don't sleep?
He don't sleep? What do he do?
Oh.
The hungry ghost.
The Holy Ghost?
The hungry ghost.
Get him some chains.
Oh, boy. This is great.
Of course, then he's drinking that coffee, I understand.
Acha.
You want the other one on?
Yeah, put on the other lights, too.
They don't know what that is.
No.
All right, good. All right, great. We're missing a few more people, but should we begin or should we wait a few more minutes?
A few more.
Buddhadas is still driving. Is she? I don't know.
She's supposed to.
Acha. We'll wait a few more minutes.
There's Buddha's there.
That's Buddhadas there?
Yep.
Pulling in?
Walking in.
Walking in. All right.
Walked all the way from Indiana.
That's more than a half a cup and a saba. Half a cup.
I thought it was so strong, you know.
All right, pour half of it in another cup and give it to Satrani.
You'll be walking home.
That's right.
God,
So she can keep the Holy Ghost company
put 2
tonight.
sugars in it. Walking.
Yes.
I'm going to put 2 sugars in it. It might not be sweet enough.
Thank you, beloved.
Only 2 sugars. Is it okay?
Just fine, beloved. Anything you do on the Sabbath is fine. Anybody else? Parani Ra. What? Paravaji?
Want me to go knock on doors?
If you like. See, Sadarji, he's walking, you fixed him up last night. Should have put a pack on his head. His problem is in his head. He thinks it's his back, it's his head. Well, one ice pack for his head. There he is. And we're waiting for Siddhanta.
When BB get here, we should roll. Everybody else.
Bilal said when BB comes, we should start. Because, she's come
You know we stopped
from
last
Indiana,
Come
they
from
just have to
Indiana,
walk
too.
up a hallway. Huh? All right, very good. Then Siddhartha, you close the door. We'll take a moment of silence, and that'll give them a few more minutes. We're going to have a little bit of a workshop today, so we will be informal, but nevertheless, let us invoke the source of blessing so that our efforts here to understand the Dhamma will be aided and abetted. All right, great. So now that you have considered some of the things we have been discussing throughout the course of the retreat, you are able to better appreciate the role that attention plays in the cultivation of love. You're better able to really understand how our ability to access and make right use of the Guru, the Dharma, and the Sangha is wholly dependent upon our ability to free up the attention necessary to indulge in these refuges. You see, not much point in having a refuge that you can't get to. It ceased to be a refuge. Is that right? So this whole business is about the liberation of attention, training of our attention. And that is the whole point and purpose of the meditation practice. It is to develop this kind of skill and ability to direct your attention. The Lord has simply surrounded us with this grace, but you can't get grace if you can't give your attention to it. You're not receptive to it, you see. But I used to say that our situation is like that of an inverted cup in a torrential downpour of rain. There's no lack of rain, it's just that your cup is inverted, you see. The attention must be inverted. It must be withdrawn. The cup must be set up right, and then that's it. Nothing else is required on your part. You see. But I used to always say that our whole task is simply to get to the eye center. That's it. If you can make it to the eye center, it is all over with. Grace will do the rest. It is even wrong to presume that your effort could take you to Satsang. You can't get to Satsang by virtue of your effort, however heroic that effort is. You can't even become enlightened by the sheer force of your own effort. Our effort simply puts us in a position to be enlightened by a force much greater than your ego. The ego cannot do anything that will result in its own enlightenment. Please make a note of that. That can't happen. But what it can do, you see, is to create a circumstance in which grace can be responded to. You can turn your cup up, and that's all that is required. So I used to say, just get here. Bring this attention, and the Shabbat will take over from you. love will come and get you, but you got to get to the station. Now, you all have been initiated, so you got your ticket, you got your passport, you see, but you got to get to the train. The train is not going to pull up in front of your house and wait for you. You understand?
Get you out of there.
Yes. No, not going to wake you up in the morning and all of that. You see? So you have to get to the eye center. You have to live the kind of life that will create the requisite degree of receptivity required for the experience of grace. So there's a certain kind of way to live, isn't it? This has been called Paramatma. Paramatma. In contradistinction to Swartmark, this is the worldly way of life. The worldly way of life is to remain face down and non-responsive and non-receptive to grace. Paramatma, to live a spiritual life, is to live in a state of moment-to-moment receptivity to grace. You see my point? You're waiting. You're prepared. You're at the station. You're just waiting for the train to come in. You're there with your bags, you follow me, your passport, everything in order, and you just waiting for that train to come. You've done your part. Swartmark is just the opposite. You see? It's a lack of interest in anything related to spiritual matters. The complete absence of any kind of barah, you see, characterizes.
Which is which?
Swartmark, worldly. This is the spiritual way of life. And that is the whole purpose of initiation, is to live a spiritual way of life. Initiation has no other purpose, does it? I mean, it's not going to help you in the world. You don't get initiated to succeed in the world. You get initiated. You take sannyas because you have already made up your mind about what you will devote your life to. You have already decided, I will devote my life to the pursuit of God and self-realization. That's what sannyas and initiation is all about, isn't it? You don't take initiation and then debate whether you will devote your life to God and the quest for self-realization. Do you? Well, maybe you did. But in any case, here's an opportunity to correct yourself and to become very clear about the matter. So with this Paramatma, you see, there's all kinds of obstacles that must be overcome in order to really become a Paramathi, one who lives the spiritual way of life. And remember, the spiritual way of life includes all of the things associated with a spiritual way of life, i.e. meditation, seva. You see, and all of that, you know all of these various things, so there's no need to go into them again. But I want you to understand that the term Paramath and the Paramathi one who lives that way of life, is all inclusive of everything that is pertaining to sadhana and the spiritual path. Hmm? And there's all kinds of obstacles to living Paramatha, practicing Paramatha. And we have to deal with all of them. Now, there's a lot of these things. We've spent years talking about a lot of the obstacles to Paramatha. But there are some major obstacles to Paramatha, the spiritual way of life. And the first one is Kusang, the company of worldly people. The first obstacle you must overcome is Kusang. You see, because you have already in relationship with a bunch of worldly people who are anti-spiritual. They are hostile toward anything that has to do with spirituality. These people are flat out and unapologetically worldly. They are obsessed with indulgence in all of the sensual pleasures that are available to them in this world. They live their life at the level of sex, money, food, bodily comfort. And they have no interest whatsoever in spiritual matters and are quite offended whenever you even bring the subject up. Carl has surrounded every would-be Paramathi with a Kusang. Everyone. More than one, yes. And this is a great obstacle because your attachment has been formed within the context of your Kusang. You are attached to these people. You are attached to a bunch of people who have no interest in becoming enlightened. You begin to see your dilemma? That's a big, big obstacle. People who are almost beyond spiritual redemption. Carl has surrounded every marked soul with a Kusang. Carl is intent on making sure you do not become enlightened. There is a force in the universe, you see? That is intent on keeping you bound. And so it has created all these obstacles to the spiritual journey that all of us are on. And one of the most formidable, of course, is the Kusang that you were born into. The Kusang reinforces your identification with the body, emotions, and mind as being self. And the object of Paramatha is to become liberated from the misidentification of yourself as being the body, feelings, and mind. Paramatha is about the liberation of Surit from Maya, the liberation of pure conscious being from its misidentification of self as being the body, emotions, and mind. And the whole function of your Kusang is to convince you that you're nothing but a body. And you're nothing but your emotions. And you're nothing but a mind. So you see how these forces are at play in your life. That's the first obstacle. That's a big obstacle. We can have a little dialogue about it because this is retreat. That's what we're here for. We can jack the schedule around any way we want to. But you mustn't leave here this weekend without coming to some profound understanding about your condition. That's what this is all about, isn't it? You must observe your condition. This is more of that observation. Yes, beloved?
Christoph, you're saying that Carl, these people aren't informed, like, to know that they're doing this, but Carl is utilizing these people that you're surrounded by.
Carl has created and surrounded you with them, imprisoned you in their company, locked you into
And
them.
they're unaware.
They have no awareness whatsoever.
Is including our families?
Of course, that's what you're saying. You've been listening? You've been listening to me? Especially your family. Especially your intimate relations. Yeah. That's your jail. A prison made of flesh and blood. Yes, beloved.
This is Kabir's Anurag Sagar, the story of.
Yes, this is every mystic tells the same story. Every mystic comes and tries to first make you aware of your condition, your situation, your imprisonment, and who is imprisoning you. All these people that you calling friend and loved ones and people who have my interest at heart, this is Kusang. Yes, beloved.
Is that coming from all of the yugas? Or I know it's
Every yuga. Every yuga. This is something that is set into motion by the Creator God itself has created this scheme. That's the only way to sustain and guarantee the perpetuation of existence. You must have souls down in this creation. You can't let everybody out of here, otherwise this thing comes to an end. Yes, beloved?
I read somewhere where they call it the booms, 3 booms.
Boons that were granted to Colin. Of course, you can share that source because there's just so much and we don't have a time, so I'm going to try to stick to that which is essential. Perhaps those things that you may not be able to pick up in a book, you see? Or even if you did, you didn't quite understand it. But you're absolutely right. And so these were boons that were granted to the Kal Purush, the Creator itself. What you'll call it Allah, what you'll call it God, what you'll call it Jehovah, all of the various names that you give to God, that is the Kal Purush. That's what has created this thing. The Brahma. And our goal is Par-Brahma, beyond Brahma. The metaphysics gets heavy. But the point I want you to appreciate right now, because your problem is not directly with Brahm, because you're a long way from that. You got to first handle the Kusang. You got to understand what your condition are as you are making this effort. In Paramatha. Yes, Ketera.
I don't want to take you off this, but I had a question yesterday that kind of sort of, when we went macro like that, it kind of brought me back there. When talk about, you know, the need for all these bodies and souls to be here on this plane that created, you know, egos obviously for us to be
Yes.
able to want to transcend, to come back. Is that the same with the mind in terms of, is there any culture, or has there ever been any culture where there was a preponderance of minds that weren't involved in the activities that are these negative kinds
No.
of states of being?
No,
Okay.
no. Paramatsis have always been few, in any time, in any age, including the Satyuga. You see my point? Always few. Always.
So the mind is just really rigged to be in that situation anyway.
The mind is a part of the process to guarantee the continuance of creation. It's its function.
Yes.
It is a structural and inherent function. So again, there's a lot of metaphysics here, but we won't get bogged down in metaphysics here. I know that it triggers a lot of other things, but I want you to kind of stay focused. Because you see, the trap that you're in, the kusang that you must deal with, this is flesh and blood. You see, there's nothing mysterious about that. I'm talking about your mom, I'm talking about your dad, I'm talking about your children, I'm talking about your son, I'm talking about your husband, I'm talking about your friends, I'm talking about your co-worker, I'm talking about your business partner, and I'm talking about all of the activities you all have mutually engaged in, all of the contracts you have made with one another, all of the deals you have cut, all of the collaboration that you all are involved in. All of that is kusang, bad company.
Now, in the case of your immediate family being Kusang as they are, I just find that my mother, my sister, my brother-in-law, it's just a few of us that are right, in Kansas City, my very close family, and I don't have a problem with the fact that I know that I'm very kind of detached from them in a lot of ways, and in fact they're all together with my son at a resort right now, not understand, I'm not understand what I'm doing, but so I just don't. I see that in all my interactions with people that they are, it's a pull there that I don't want to, be engaged in it anymore.
Well, yes, I understand that. But when you have to consider this argument, because you see, you will not really even appreciate the degree to which you are dominated by your kusang until you sit for meditation. That's all you can think about is your kusang, isn't it? What do you think your mind is running to? It's running to its kusang, its relationships, its concern about them, right? You're sitting there thinking about Kari, not about God. You understand? Kusang, the force of kusang is there. You have to consider this thing. I'm giving you the basics here, but you all got 2 hours of cooler today, and you're going to need every minute of it, okay? Because you got to really consider your predicament. It's not a matter of them being around you or not. Even when they're not around you, they're in you. They're in your mind. They're in your heart. They permeate your very being.
That's right.
Yeah, they could be dead.
They can even be dead. Yeah, you got dead members of your kusang that is creating an obstacle for you on the path. And they dead. That's the power. I mean, this thing is deep. Garbira, as Buddha says. Unfathomable. You think you're dealing with a superficial force? You think Carl is a fool? Huh? No. You don't know what you're dealing with here. This is a force way beyond your capacity to even understand. This thing has created this very body that you're in, and has imprisoned the surit in this body. Imprisoned you in your emotions, imprisoned you in your mind. It has created the mind itself. whatever little intelligence you are trying to use comes from Carl. You have to really understand and appreciate your predicament. Now, we're going to keep trying to move here. I know there's a lot of things, but I hope that in your cooler you'll ask these kind of questions of one another and really begin to unpack this thing, go deep into it. And then if there's something that you can't resolve in cooler, we got another occasion for Satsang today, and we're gonna deal with that. But this is what must be dealt with. You see, you must simply understand your condition. Clearly understand it. Hmm? So that's the first obstacle. There's more. That's just the first one. Okay? Kusang. The obstacle that is inherent in your very relationship to everybody in your life, especially your intimate others. Your children. You cannot practice because you can't get past your children. You can't get past your husband. You can't get past your wife. You can't get, you see. You can't get past them. And these people have no interest in spiritual matters whatsoever. Don't forget that. Swamiji Maharaji called them dekats, thieves, robbers. Jesus said that your enemy should be the members of your own household. For the Paramathi, the members of your household is your greatest enemy. Because you're so attached. You are infatuated to the point of obsession with these people. That's what attachment is. It's a form of infatuation based on a false presumption of their value. Isn't it? I guess we'll
Now that statement that Jesus made, I'll come with the sword.
Yes.
To separate
Man from his wife. Mother and father.
That
Right. Makes so much sense, right?
now.
Yeah. Because that's the first order of business. That's the first task. It is the most difficult task that the Guru has, is to somehow break this need connection that you have with your Kusang. Jesus puts it very beautifully. I come with a sword to cut these bonds asunder. Hmm? And you are very much attached to and identify with your Kusang. Your Kusang is your Guru. That's who you're following. It's the advice of your Kusang. They support you. That's where your ego is getting all this support, isn't it?
Yeah.
This becomes then the source of food and energy for the ego. This is what sustains the ego, maintains it. Hmm? These are the ones who congratulate you in your success at getting more money, more food, more sex, and more effective ways of having bodily comfort. They cheer you. They tell you what a great job you've done. I'm proud of you. Got out there and you made a lot of money. We're so proud of you. Of course. And that sustains your ego. Hence, they must be annihilated for your sake. And in Gahata, you see, if you cannot be separated by the sword of the Dharma, you see, then the hammer of the Dharma becomes necessary. Gahata. Now, what the divine force beyond Brahma has to do is to just start killing them all. Because sometimes your attachment is so profound. Your ignorance is so deep, your attachment is so intense that the Dharma can't cut it. That bond, not even the sword of Dharma can cut it. There is no other option. We got to start killing these people. Kill your baby, kill your wife. Start killing. the only way to loosen it up. Otherwise, you can't. You see, you can't get detached from the business. So let's destroy it, bankrupt your ass. You understand? Because there's no other way for you. Bankrupt you. You follow me? You all know about the hot tub, right? I've talked to you about that. That is also in the service of, again, helping the Paramathi overcome this first obstacle. Now, I can go on and on about this here, but we don't have time. But I want you to really consider this thing here. If you can make it past that, at least you are able to have some degree of practice now. At least you can start practicing. So you cannot even practice unless you can get past the gravitational force of your Kusang. You can't even get up and meditate. You can't do any of it. They have absorbed all of your time, energy, and attention to the point you can't even have a practice. You can't even get up and meditate. You can't go to Satsang. You can't study. You cannot be involved almost at all in any kind of spiritual life. You don't have no time and energy and attention for it. The Kusang has absorbed all of that. But if you can get a little freed up from the Kusang, you see, then at least you can practice. Now, I don't even have to begin to tell you that one of the antidotes to Kusang is obvious, isn't it? Satsang. It is only by means of satsang that you can even have the possibility of having enough energy, time, and attention liberated to do anything like spiritual practice. If it was not for a satsang in a sangha, in the company of folks who value spiritual matters, you simply would never practice. If we have not encountered the Guru, you will not be doing any kind of spiritual practice at all. You will have no interest in this matter. I mean, your Kusang extinguished your interest in religion. It kept your interest superficial. The Kusang helped you make a mockery of religion, because that's what Kusang do. You have to remember, the Kusang is those individuals in your life to whom you are very much attached, incidentally, who have no interest. Hear me clearly. These people have no interest in becoming self and God realized at all. Now that's profound. You have created an alliance with a group of people who has told you emphatically, we don't give a fuck about that.
That is the truth.
Is that right?
Yes. That's right.
And you're turning them to them for inspiration. What is wrong with you? Yes, brother.
Okay, but do you have some that pretend to want
Oh, of course.
spirituality
Sure,
on
sure.
a deeper level? They don't.
Sure, of course. You see, but it's pretense. It is always pretense.
That's what it's-
They really do not have any concern at all. They have almost no bera. And even when they do show some semblance of bera, an interest in God, is only in those moments of their crisis. You read the hierarchy of bera? Did you get a copy of that? Beloved? I've outlined, you see, at the lowest level, where most people who make up your Kusang reside from a spiritual point of view. I won't even say most of them, just a few of them, because the majority of them don't have any bara. These are people who are almost without spiritual redemption. These are people who are headed into Sharasi. Yes, beloved.
Even
People who initiate. That's an interesting thing. You got to see if those people who initiated, you got to see where they at. Are they part of your Satsang, or some of your Kusang people following you into Satsang? Yeah, that's what you must find out. That's right. Absolutely right. Absolutely.
Some of them invade us, that song.
Yeah, they invade. They come into the Satsang and get you. Hey, come on now. Come on. Don't do no meditation. Ah, don't worry about that. You know, the Bhagwan is going to take you all that. You come on. I mean, the ways and method of the Kusangi are as varied as the pebbles of sand on a beach. Their whole function is to keep you in their service. Is that about right?
That's right. They do a damn good job, too.
They do an excellent job. They make you feel guilty. Is that about right? Sure. That's their whole job.
They know what button to push.
They know exactly what button to push, what emotion to play on, what argument to offer.
Right.
You know, you my mama.
Really? That's right.
I mean, that's hard. That's deep. You my daddy. You my brother. You see, yes, but no.
Well, you know, I've experienced some people where it, you know, I mean, this is the idea that I got in my mind. In order for them to exist, it's almost like they have to suck your energy.
Yes.
So they're around you.
Yeah, vampire.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, vampire.
You know?
That's right. They're vampire. That's what you have to understand. I mean, just read the description of these members of your Kusang that the mystics have offered you. Read Jesus. Go visit Jesus again. Hear what he has to say. Jesus don't even call them here. They're dead.
Yeah.
That's
He said, these people are dead. These people are not even alive. You are dealing with corpses. You are dealing with zombies. You're dealing with subhuman entities here. These ain't even real people. These people are blind, cannot see, have ears, they can't hear nothing. These people are the incarnation of ignorance. You see, they are anti-spiritual. They are evil. I mean, look, there's no end to the negative way in which your Kusang. Swamiji Maharaji, I already quoted them. He called them decors, thieves, robbers.
But wait now, Master, we chose them though. We chose them for our spiritual. The paradox is
Well,
that
that's
we
another
chose
matter. The thing
Or
is
did
that
they choose
you in this thing here, so you know what I mean? You don't have that luxury. You see, again, that is what I call the abuse of spiritual truth. You're abusing the spiritual truth because you're presuming that you are at that level of spirituality where you know that. You are not at that level of spirituality. You're at down here.
That's why.
That's right. So don't abuse any spiritual truism and presume that you are at that level where you can make such distinctions.
Well, see, that's the thing.
That's
It's
right.
got to get it. It's got to be put out there, though,
That's right. That's
It's
right.
got to come out.
Sure, it's
so
got to put it
that,
out
you
there
know,
so
it
that
can
you
be
get
clarified.
back. But
Right.
that's again is the function. You see, that's the function of the guru. Otherwise, you'll be
Right.
deluded by your premature presumption of being spiritual. And your Kusang will reinforce that, right?
There you go.
Sure, that's what a Kusang will do. Kusang tell you, you saved, you blessed. You see, you accepted Jesus. Now that's enough with the spiritual business.
You know so much.
There you go. You smart. You know what I mean?
That's right.
That's the Kusang working on you. You ain't none of those things. But the Kusang is not going to tell you. It's not in their best interest to tell you because they cannot continue to exploit you. The Guru will tell you, you don't know anything. Period. Now that will offend you, hurt the ego. You know what I mean? It's just, the effect of the Guru is just the opposite of Kusang. So you see now, what the first gift that the Guru gives you is the company of his devotees. He gives you satsang. That's powerful. Ponder it. Consider that today. That's the first gift. Hmm? He gives you the gift of Satsang. He gives you the gift of Dharma. Hmm? Until you really appreciate what your prior condition was, you can't appreciate this Sangha. None of you. Hmm? That's why I tell you all the time, I've given you each other as a gift. This is a gift. Because you don't have this. You don't have this. You didn't have this. You follow me? Before you came here, did you? You didn't have this, did you? You didn't have this Sangha. You didn't have these people who are at least provincially interested in spiritual matters. You know what I mean? Far more serious about it than your members of your Kusang, aren't they? Right? Noel ain't interested in this stuff. You can't even get him to read a book. You know what I mean? That you done sit there and he's seen you sitting there preparing. He wasn't even curious enough to think, Mama, what are you working on all night? He didn't even have that much spiritual curiosity, did he? Hmm? And if you complete the copy, say here, Bhagwan, say here, this, that book is still in Noel's drawer. He done probably lost the book. No interest. Hmm? If I put a tape in at home, Joyce immediately, takes it out. You understand? Immediately. Don't want to hear nothing pertaining to that. I mean, really. You all got members in your house. Then you put a Bhagwan tape, get that tape out of there! Cut that shit off! Move these books! Move all these books! I remember years ago we have a friend we call a Budget, Yogi Budget. And we used to have satsang in one another's house, you see. And so we would go to Yogi house on those occasions when he was hosting the wine shop, you see. And of course, you try to create the atmosphere, So if you ever been to any of our houses, then you see these big pictures of Maharaji, Well, Bhajan probably had the most beautiful picture of Maharaji that I ever seen. It was like Maharaji against a sunset. It was orchid. I mean, it was just gorgeous. Then it was big and pretty. And he had it on his front wall, you know what I mean? And we're coming in, we're getting ready to have satsang and all of this. And his wife came into the room and said, get that goddamn picture off this wall. I told you about it. Take that shit down. She didn't care about no Maharaji. Get that shit out the wall. This is Kusang. That's all you had before you came here was Kusang. Beloveds?
You know what, Master, that happened to me because my doctor, my Savior gave me a picture of you, right, for a wedding gift. So I put it on my wall, and my daughter's like, oh, she done went off now. Darling, come and look what Mama did. She got this on her wall now.
That's right. That's right.
And then they call their friends. My mama got her friend on the wall.
That ain't good, so they worried about you. Taking this stuff way too serious. You see, yes, beloved.
Kusang, and even when it's subtle, even when they act like they agree, because I got a group that act like they agree.
That's right.
But then they undermine it with other little things. You know what I'm saying? So even when they come like it's okay.
That's right.
It
It's
ain't
all
okay.
fake.
So you got to watch it.
It's all fake. It's all pretense. It is all fraud. It is Kusang. You got to get clear about Kusang. Because you're going to marry one of them. And when you start thinking that you got a spiritual ally, you're in trouble. That is not your spiritual ally. That is Kusang. Are you clear about it? Yes, sir. That's Kusang. Mm-hmm. You clear on that with me? That's Kusang. This is your Sangha. Hmm? This is your Sangha. And this is the only antidote to your Kusang. This is your refuge. These are the people you turn to. You see, to be spiritually inspired. You don't turn to your Kusang. for spiritual inspiration, do you?
Can't go to them for nothing.
Can't do nothing. So if you are able then to somehow or another liberate enough energy, time, and attention from your kusang, then some level of spiritual practice become possible in your case. And in fact, your spiritual practice, your ability to engage in spiritual practice is only to the degree that you have become liberated from your kusang. Those of you who see clearly on your Bhakti Kula report this kind of up and down, sporadic type of practice, just kind of weak sadhana, this weak practice, that is because you are still mightily entrapped in your kusang. Every area and aspect of sadhana where you are struggling is a sign of your level of captivity to your kusang. You're still pretty much dominated by your kusang. And that's what it looks like. Yes, beloved?
So that means you have to, the satsang is helping you to discriminate, not to, because you fall into the traps
Yeah,
with that, your responsibility to be a good human being.
all of that.
How to distinguish between.
All of that. Satsang and the company of spiritual practitioners helps
Because you can't abandon them out of your life, can
you. No.
Well, you can, but they follow you.
You know what I mean? It is simply a matter of you becoming liberated from them in terms of your time, energy, and attention. They no longer dictate to you what you're doing with your life. You follow me? It is presently stand, your kusang is controlling you. And this kusang, remember, at first it starts with your immediate family, right? But that's not the end. You got a big kusang. Way bigger than this little tiny satsang that I offered you. You see? Your kusang is made up of your culture, your society, your ethnic background, your co-workers, your education, right? Bush is a part of your kusang. Is that right? Sure he is, you know. The Titans of Wall Street, that's a part of your kusang. You know, they say you better make you some money, nigga. And that's what you up to. You know what I mean? Isn't it?
That's right. Yes. That's right.
Sure, you're a part of all of that. So your immediate family is just the core of your kusang. But that you got a big kusang. You know? Carl is taking no chances. So even if you manage to get past 4 or 5 of your intimate others, you know, he's got a plan B for you. You know what I mean?
Where you going?
He's gonna get you. You understand? Yes, beloved.
That's what you just said, because I was saying, well, is there any way that you could have somehow broken free pretty much from your immediate, and then
Yeah.
you got all this other stuff?
Got
So
you
that's
surrounded.
where I'm at. Okay.
Got you
But
surrounded.
even with the immediate family, I mean, my kids, they grew up, they knew, you know, when I meditated, so now they've got real clever. And they just keep on coming up with stuff with mama. I gotta keep my, and they'll come in when they know that you're practicing or
Yeah.
trying to practice,
Yeah.
they keep coming up with stuff. Trying to, huh? They have to have a key, always to have a key.
So all of these observations you can make. You see my point? And should make them, right? But I want you to make them. I want you to see them. I want you to share with one another. Help one another really see this thing here. We don't have the kind of time to explore all of the nuances and details and instances of this, you see. But let's move on, and I think what we will do, who has a schedule here? We're going to have to change some of this because I have got to get this work done with you here. And I know we have breakfast coming next. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Acha. So we're going to try to eat and talk because we got more to do here, right? So maybe what we'll do, we'll move this board and we'll move over into the cafeteria while you eat. quietly, and I will continue because we got to get this done. But we got a few more minutes that we can still spend. Hmm?
Master, we got a 2.5-hour cooler meeting.
Well, I want you all to make good use of your cooler. Hmm? I might have to co-op maybe a half an hour of your cooler. Will that be all right? And and we'll skip half of lunch. Let's cut lunch to a half an hour, and then come back over here. And then I can take a half an hour from your cooler and get another hour, right? Because we got a lot more to do here. Okay, I mean a lot more to do. Hmm? Now let us continue. So, provided you have made use of Satsang to the point that you're able to liberate some of your time, energy, and attention out of the Kusang, then spiritual practice becomes at least possible to some degree. Well, the Kal Purush, as I said before, is intent. So what? Okay, you broke free of the force of Kusang. You're able to get up in the morning time and actually make it to the meditation cushion. And this is not good from Carl's point of view. So the Kal Purush has created some internal obstacles to the practice. And there's 4 major ones. We'll have a little discussion about it. There's 4 major internal obstacles. So are y'all following me so far? Okay, because you know, I sort of kind of want to speed up a little bit, but then again, I don't want to miss anything, because who knows when we will get this kind of an occasion again to really look at all of this thing, because this is stuff you must understand if you are to become a real paramasi and practitioner. You can't practice truly if you don't understand all of these dynamics here. All of them. And understand them deeply. And understand them as they relate to you personally.
Right.
Don't be imagining no Kusang. I'm telling you, you got a Kusang. See it clearly here. Don't get distracted. Don't philosophize it. You follow me? Don't make metaphysics out of it. I mean, see this thing real clearly here. I mean, very, very clearly. So in any case, if you are able to get past the external obstacles to meditation in the form of your Kusang, right? And your body, you're able to get past that, because that's also a part of the external obstacle to spiritual practice, isn't it? Remember, the Kal Purush has given you this body as an obstacle, right? Because of all of the sensual pleasures, all of the burden of taking care of it and so forth. That's an obstacle, isn't it? These emotions, your feelings and so forth, and your mind. Principally the intellect. All of these are obstacles. This is the part of the external obstacle, right? Because one of the greatest barriers to your practice is getting past the obstacle of the body. You can't get past the obstacle of the body, because the body don't never feel like meditating. Make a note. It wasn't designed to feel like meditating. When you consult it, it's always going to say, give 15 more minutes. Don't do it now. And we'll have time later on today, right? We're going to get into all of that. But you have to understand that. You can't generate any kind of spiritual practice consulting the enemy. Even in the arguments of Jesus and so many sages, they talk about this body, this flesh, and this sinfulness, as they put it, right? But they were pointing out to us is that you can't generate the worship of God by consulting this body. This body has to be conquered. That's the whole concept behind asceticism and tapasya. You follow me? It's to lose all sympathy with this body. Stop consulting it. It will never generate practice. It wasn't even designed for that by the call preach. It is the foundation. It is the linchpin. It is the very core of the Kusang. The whole Kusang is based on the body. All of your relationships are relationship to your what? Right. Your Kusang is related to the body. Isn't it?
That's right.
Is that about right? The body then is what hold that whole Kusang together. Makes it possible in the first place. It's profound, isn't it?
Yes.
Therefore, as long as you identify with your body, you are automatically, you see, identified with the Kusang that is related to it. You see how that works? When you say my body, that automatically includes the relationship to this body. Because now it's my mama from the point of view of the body, isn't it? My wife, but from what? The point of view of the body. All of your attachment, all of this stuff is based on your identification with the body, isn't it? Isn't it? All right. So you've gotten past some of the obstacles. Now you're getting into the inner obstacles, right? And we're just going to focus here on the inner obstacles as it relates to the emotions and mind. Okay? The first one is what they call Lai. And in Radha Swami metaphysics, in the South Bhajan poetry, Radha Swami Sahib, whom we refer to as Swamiji Maharaji, the founding guru of Radha Swami Maharaji, this particular version and species of the Sant Mat. You all must know from your own historical studies that Sant Mat existed long before Swamiji even incarnated in Agra. But certainly Swamiji added a kind of depth to Sant Mat that had not been enjoyed in all of the preceding centuries, you see. And he named this version of Sant Mat Radha Swami. Well, he didn't even name it. One of his chief disciples, Saligram, his Guru Mukha, he called it the Radha Swami faith, you see. But in Swamiji's mind, of course, he was simply offering more Sant Mat. But in any case, in the metaphysics of Radha Swami faith, we have this understanding of life as being one of the major obstacles to Paramatma. One of the major inner obstacles to Paramatma. And you must become capable of overcoming this obstacle. And lie is, and then now here's where it gets a little difficult, because I want to say that the best word to translate for it is sloth, because lie is like sloth. It's a kind of drowsy. How you spell drowsy? Okay, that's close enough. Okay.
That's why. You're right. That's it.
It's that feeling of drowsiness. It's a feeling, you know? You're sluggish, you see? Even when you can make it to practice. You made it. Hallelujah.
Yes.
But you ain't freed yet, right? But you made it. Now you got to overcome this next obstacle, which is life. You're there, but you're sluggish. You're tired. You're drowsy. It feels like you're sleeping. But actually, lie is really a state of semi-consciousness.
Semi-conscious.
You're not fully conscious. You see? You just emerged out of the Kusang, you see? You're a little bit more conscious, but you're still not fully conscious. You're semi-conscious. You're trying to meditate out of a state of semi-consciousness.
Okay.
That's what is responsible for these symptoms. All of these are symptoms of semi-consciousness. And it's a kind of semi-consciousness that is born of too much fantasy. Who said That means you got it, right? I like that sound. That means there's somebody getting it. Remember I talked to you yesterday about Guna Ones, fantasizing. Hypnotic fantasy, as Babaji shared that term from a Sufi mystic with us. Well, I told you that you have to really understand the damaging effect that fantasy has on your mind. And the most obvious effect and damage that fantasy does is that it reduces your level of consciousness. You are semi-conscious.
So, Master, this is not when you actually emerging out of physical sleep. This right here is when I'm walking around in my regular life.
Absolutely.
Semi-conscious.
It's semi-conscious. It is created by fantasy and given a free rein to your imagination.
Is this what you were saying was so dangerous?
That's what I was telling you. It's so dangerous. You do not restrain and restrict the movement of your imagination. You walk around.
Don't even notice it.
Of course not.
Talking about restraining it, you don't even know.
You don't even know you're in the state. You see? So this refusal then to discipline attention, to keep it out of these realms of fantasy, to restrict the wandering of attention. When you allow your attention to wander randomly and with no discipline, the net outcome is that it reduces your degree of consciousness. And that is what you bring to your practice. That's why you can't concentrate. You don't even have enough consciousness to concentrate. You're semi-conscious. I mean, it's amazing you even made it to the cushion. I congratulate you in those intentions. Because, I mean, it's still something, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you mustn't flatter yourself in your semi-conscious state in attempt at meditation as in being in any way, shape, form, or fashion enlightened, or spiritual for that matter. Right? Yes, beloved.
So what you're doing, you're burning energy instead of conserving.
I guess that's one way of putting it, but it's far worse than that. I mean, you're semi-conscious. See, that's a much greater kind of failure. You're not even conscious, fully conscious.
But I was just saying that the burning of the energy fatigues the mind.
Yes, yes. When you're doing this fantasy, yes. If that's what you mean,
Yeah.
that you're using a
That's
lot
what
of
I'm
mental
saying,
energy. Yeah,
drowsiness
yeah,
and
yeah,
so forth.
yeah. You're consuming in the form of fantasy the energy.
Because your brain is constantly,
Yeah, it
On
drains you.
overdrive.
That's why you're so tired.
yeah.
That's why you're, and I appreciate your point now. That's why you're feeling sloth. Because there's no mental energy. You done wasted all your energy fantasizing. Is that right? You drowsy. You can barely hold your, you know what I mean? You don't know where you at. You even forget you meditating.
That's right.
Is that right? You forget what I'm doing. You're so drowsy. Nothing is clear. You know, the names are not crisp. They're not distinct. You know you're saying them, but it's like you can't even hear them. You know? It's somnambulance. You understand? It's like a sleep sitting, a sleepwalking, you know? You sleep sitting. Real tired. You can barely go
through this here.
Lai, semi-consciousness, born up, the failure to restrict the play of the imagination, permitting your attention to one. So now you begin to understand what you're doing throughout the day?
Yes.
Is that about right? You just leaking energy.
Yeah, it shows up, even throughout the day,
Yeah.
just the ability to perform basic tasks
Yeah.
that take
Yeah.
energy. You realize
Anything that takes concentration, you have a hard time with. You can hardly concentrate at work.
nothing.
You know what I mean? So the quality of your work is right down the drain. I mean, you can't hardly do anything that requires concentration. You live a life there in the shadows.
Being a zombie.
Yeah.
You realize that at the end of the day, how much stuff you failed at and messed up.
Sure.
and just all the way-
Sure. And
meditation.
Sure.
All the way
Sure.
through.
Sure. Sure. And hold that thought, because as we move into some of the other major obstacles, inner obstacles, we're going to revisit that whole thing about what you just said, the failures. All right? Because that too is something that we will address. Let's go and eat lunch quickly, and then let's return here in a half an hour sharp, and we'll try to get you some more lunch. Breakfast. I'm talking to you about it. So see, Dave was talking. Part of myself. Obstacles that confront every Paramathi in the effort to fulfill their spiritual goals, i.e. self and God realization. And we left off talking about life, and so you all now have a better understanding of that.
Kusang,
Yes, beloved.
can I share something? about
Yes.
Fantasy? Before you leave that, that can be a very subtle thing to see. And I never considered myself a fantasizer in the sense of sitting down and daydreaming, but just the last 6 months or so. And one of the things that happened was when I got a car, when I was on the train, that was my time to read and focus. And now I have a car and I don't have a cassette player to listen to house tapes and stuff. So now I've been listening to music, whatever, and I've really become aware of the different ways of fantasizing for me personally and how pervasive it is.
Yes.
And it didn't become clear until I had the opportunity to be in this situation. But that was something I would never attribute to myself. You were about thinking and I'm fantasizing, but the truth is, it's just going on all the time.
Yeah.
But the last that was an incident that allowed me the chance to really see in my case how pervasive and ongoing it really truly is.
Sure.
You know, and all the ways in which fantasizing can take shape.
Sure, sure. And absolutely right, you see, beloved. At some level, this wandering of attention into all the kinds of forms that it can take in terms of fantasizing and imagining and so forth and so on, it has a pleasure component. Fantasizing is one of the greatest pleasure that human beings have. And it becomes all the more critical to the degree that in our real life, there is none. You see? It's like in a dream. It does the same thing, like how you go into a dream and have those experiences that you can't have in the waking condition and so forth and so on. Well, fantasy serves that same kind of function, you see? It allows you to be great and successful and so forth and so on, you see, and all of the pleasure that is associated with that. And so naturally for the ego, it does not want to give that up. And when you all were considering the things that you were unwilling to give up for the sake of loving God, if you were a student, observant, like Siddhanta was, I'm sure you were, then you would have noticed that one of the primary things you are unwilling to give up is fantasizing. You don't want to give that up for the sake of simmering God in you. You see? That's what makes your post-formal meditation and moment-to-moment practice so difficult because it requires you to willingly give up the pleasure that you have been deriving from fantasizing. And you are unwilling to do that. You see? So much more can be said about that. Again, it's Kula Mela. It's the celebration of Kula and the whole process that informs Kula, cutting through, getting down to the truth. So you all have some more Kula to do today. So if you didn't see it yesterday, see it today. And those of you who have gotten a glimpse, help the other one. You follow me? That's how we do this thing. Let us continue. And if we can get through them, I can backtrack, okay, and then unpack depth. At least as much time as we have for it. So light, okay, first inner obstacle, right? You made it to the meditation cushion, but you're still semi-conscious. Now, even though you made it there, if you can now overcome this obstacle of light, Carl has another one back behind. There's something. Okay, you see? You're able to overcome your drowsiness, sluggishness, and so forth and so on, and there's a certain degree of alertness now available to you at the time that you are practicing. You see? You're not rocking, and then there's some re-out state and condition. You know, there's a little alertness, clarity, awareness of what you're actually doing inside of your mind, you see. The next obstacle then that Carl put in our way is, I better write it clearly, Vikshikpa. This means VI. Vikshikpa is a term, and I guess what it translates best as is a kind of fickleness of mind. I guess that's right, fickleness. Feeble-mindedness, fickle-mindedness, you see, instability of mind. It's that tendency in mind to jump around, to jump all over the place, to hop all over the place, constantly moving from one item to the next item, to the next item, to the next item, to the next item. You see? You can sit now, right? There is some kind of alertness, but you're distracted continuously. Your mind is simply going from here to there, to here, to there, to here, to there, but you're not asleep. You're able to sit the whole time. You're not asleep at all. You're not even drowsy. You're, in some sense, very alert. But that alertness is being, you see, distributed. You're not able to focus.
That's not called scattering. That's not what scattering
Yeah, it's a kind of scattering thing in the sense that you're just all over the place. You see, but what it is that your attention and your mind is just going from one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. You see, it's never on simmering. It's never on budging. It's never on Dion. It can't get there yet. You can't get focused enough. You see my point? Yes, sir. You see, to make it rest. You can't focus. You can't hold it. You still can't concentrate. Remember, these are the major inner obstacles to concentration and meditation. These are the obstacles that must be overcome for the sake of becoming capable of concentrating. And then meditation, you see? And certainly you can see that from your own experience, how your mind tends to wander and jump all over the place. All over the place. Topic to topic, subject to subject. All kinds of things flood your mind at that time. And in this way, you see, you waste all of the time that you have allotted for practice with the mind just jumping around. You didn't even go to sleep, though. You really did. And you set the full time. You follow me? You didn't fall asleep. You see. But neither did you concentrate 1 minute of that time. Instead, your attention jumped all over the place. Now, the cause of that is basically a lack of determination and deliberation. Right? You're not deliberate and determined in your practice. You lack that. You don't bring that. You follow me? You're not sitting with any kind of deliberation and determination to do Simran or to do your budget or Dion, you see? Now this is a major obstacle. You see my point? This is a major obstacle. In some sense, more formidable than even dealing with Lai. And so the saints of mystic then have recommended some antidotes for that condition, dealing with it, because again, what you're suffering from fundamentally is a lack of what they would call discrimination, a lack of understanding. And so the cure for that is threefold, right? We've talked about it. I'm just going to go over it briefly again. We're not going to exhaust it. We mentioned them when we talked about the Drishti Dhamma, right? The function of the Drishti Dhamma, of these Drishtis, the Ba'ada, the Mithya, and the Duch. The function of these Drishti is to correct your failure to understand the uselessness and the futility of all of this stuff that your attention is being allowed to jump around on. You follow me? It's like a bee going from flower to flower to flower to flower. Well, if you understand that there's no honey in that flower, you won't move. You see? But Shepa is the tendency of the mind to move out and forth to the things in the world. You see? I mean, you may not physically go over and pick up the juice, but you're sitting there thinking about drinking some juice. You know what I mean? It is a movement of attention still out into the world, even though you're not there, even though you're sitting physically in your meditation. And the thing that attracts your attention fundamentally because you have projected some value and significance on it. Are you following me? And the function then of these drishti is to undermine this projecting of value onto the things in this world, so that the things in this world no longer distract you at the time of meditation. You see, your attention don't go to them because there's the recognition already that these things lack any real value and significance. It's almost like when you are sitting in your meditation, your attention is just wandering all over the place, usually to something that you consider to be important. That's what you're thinking about. You're sitting there thinking about, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, I got to do that. You see my point? And it's just going all over the place to all of the things you got to do, which pertain to the world, don't it? Isn't that what it is? Your attention fundamentally is running out to those activities that you consider are important for you to do as soon as you finish. Is that about right? In fact, you can hardly Sometimes even make it through the practice because of the urgency of those matters. Is that about right? So you're sitting, you're going through it, but you just gotta hurry up. Damn, this time moving so slow. You know what I mean? Because you got to get to some important matters that remain to be addressed in your world, and that is what you tend to think about during the time of your practice. You have allotted time for meditation, but you use that time thinking about all of the important stuff you got to do when you finish meditating. Is that about right? Sometimes, if the Vashepa is so strong, you can't even meditate until you go do that stuff. Let me go get all this stuff out the way, and then you'll meditate later that evening. But shit, I got to get this bill sent off here or something. I mean, so this becomes the mechanism underlying and sustaining the movement of attention in the form of vikshepa, you see? And the cure, if you will, for that, the antidote for that, is that you have to achieve some degree of discrimination, understanding, but God. And they're threefold, and again, you can get the tape. We've gone through all of this stuff here, right? All of these dristis. The other dristi, of course, is that you really got to understand the utter uselessness and futility of all of that stuff you're thinking about for producing any real and lasting happiness and fulfillment. You got to see that. You got to be able to cut through and undermine all of the significance and importance that you're placing on this stuff. You got to see this stuff is really not that important. See, as long as you are sitting there thinking that all of that stuff is really important, then your mind will constantly be involved in it. It's only if you can really see this is not important. When you're sitting in your practice, you sit, and even if the attention goes to something pertaining to some worldly matter that must be attended to, right? If you are able to dismiss it instantly as being unimportant, insignificant, you don't dwell on it. You see my point? And some of you have had those experiences, haven't you?
Yes. Master, I'm glad you said that because that clears up something for me. I've always been able to see where these things are not going to cause me happiness per se, but that piece right there was a missing piece for me. I still see them as important. I see that, it's not going to cause me happiness.
But it's still somehow important.
It's still somehow important, and that right there really helps. Thank you.
Which means that the first seeing was not yet deep.
Not yet deep.
That's right. But at some point, when you get there, and you will feel when you cross that, because you will be constantly challenged. I can remember, I never forget it. It was the beginning of my own struggle in this area. Because, see, these are obstacles for everybody on the path. You follow what I'm saying? Everybody. You see? Gurus are no exception. You see? That's how you make it to that level of mastery. It is by going through this process. And I can remember, I never forget it, in 1972, I think I bought, was that my first Cadillac, Bilal? I think it was my first Cadillac, big green Coupe de Ville.
No, that was the second one. That was the second
one. Okay, big green Coupe de Ville, right? You should have seen me. It went well with my afro and my sideburns, that gave me a striking resemblance to Sly Stone, Family Stone. And I had the big boots and the jackets. Oh man, I go to amphitheater and they be asking for autographs. They actually thought I was Sly Stone. I was exploiting it. But in any event, I can remember on one occasion, sitting in meditation, right? Right after I bought this, it was a beautiful car. I mean, white interior.
Lime green.
You know what I'm talking about. lime green, you know, diamond in the back, sunroof top. There you go. And I remember one night sitting in meditation, right, and a burglar alarm went off. My whole meditation came to a screeching halt. I couldn't concentrate on them names to save my life. All of my attention was outside, downstairs in that parking lot. And my mind is going, ooh, I wonder if there's somebody stealing my car. God damn, these niggas over here. I know I should have got a garage, you know. I mean, the mind is just going. I wasn't sleepy. I wasn't drowsy. I wasn't in a state of semi-consciousness. I was clear enough to do Simran, but I couldn't get to the Simran because this pressing matter arose. And I had to actually get up. I tried to fight it. But man, after about 4 or 5 minutes, which seemed like an hour, it was only 4 or 5 minutes, I had to get up. You know, I'm cursing. I had to go and look out there. And once I did that, I was able to go back. And then resume my practice, you see. But I realized I can't be getting up from here every time some alarm go off because, you know, I live in the hood, man. Alarm goes off every 10 minutes. So, you know, and it's surely enough, you know, a couple of days later, here it go again, alarms. And I said, man, you know, I can't do this. I got 1 or 2 choices. Either I just got to say, hey, they just steal this car. This car's not important. You know, I got insurance. I get another car. You know what I mean? But I got to drop this concern for, you know, in fear of somebody taking a car. That's not that important, you see, to warrant my attention right now. Because this is the time I have allotted and set aside for God. And nothing is that important here. I mean, I didn't accomplish it all night, but you see, it begin that process where you really have to start getting in there. And eventually it gets down to not even the body. If the body aches, that's not that important. I mean, but it has to start somewhere. You follow me? Yes. This is Ba'ada Dristi, seeing the utter lack of importance and significance of anything and anybody in this creation. And the Ba'ada Dristi must be deep, it must be profound. Otherwise, something's going to pull you and make you get up eventually. Or not even make it to your meditation at all. So there must be Ba'ada Dristi. That's one of the ways to shut down this Vashekpa, which is the second obstacle, inner obstacle, to concentration and meditation. You can't ever become capable of concentrating and then ultimately meditating as long as you are able to be distracted by stuff that your mind threw up about your worldly situation and circumstance. That's not going to happen. A second thing that you have to do is also consider the arguments associated with Mithya, the law of impermanence. You have to understand that law of impermanence. You must make that samyama so profoundly that there's nothing in you that tries to cling to that which is impermanent. I think Mukherjee inserted for you all's enjoyment some material in your grips and about all of that. I haven't had a chance to read it all, but I glimpsed at some of it. Seems like it's interesting. But I did notice it talks about clinging to. You cling because you have not understood.
That's from Dhamma.
From Dhammamajja, good. You don't understand. And this lack of understanding will
constantly make you vulnerable to these attacks at the time of meditation. You see, you won't be able to concentrate because your mind will be involved, your attention will be involved in all of this drama. So you simply must understand, nothing is permanent. The impermanency of things. Why get all worked up about it? It's not even going to last that long. You see my point? Why get involved in all of that? Concern at the time of meditation for something that is not even going to. You see? Yes, beloved.
And that shows up in your after meditation. Too.
Oh, sure. All of these things are things that you don't do at the time of meditation. Not like your mind wandering, and then you go into a close consideration of the ba'ada dristi while you're sitting. That's still not meditating, isn't it? You don't do ba'ada dristi while you're sitting. You got to handle that business prior to sitting. You follow me? So these are not things, and I'm glad you raised that point, Keturah, so that you don't get the wrong impression here. You don't stop in the midst of your allotted time for practice and respond to your drift by going into a sanyama. That's next obstacle. I'll get to that soon. You follow me?
Yes.
Because you're still not doing any simran. You've allotted this time for simran, not for consideration, for simran. You follow me?
Yes.
This samyama of these various dristis, this consideration of these dristis here, for the sake of achieving some understanding, that is work to be done in some other allotted time frame, not at the time of meditation. And get it done. And get it done for all time. It's not so that you don't have to do it every day, every morning. You follow what I'm saying? Handle that business. Get it done once and for all. Find some bow tree. Find some room. Sit down somewhere and get it done. See it. Dristi means to see. Right? Dristi means to see. You must see this. It is an understanding based on seeing it, not hearsaying it. Seeing it. You must see it. Having it in your notes is not adequate. You must actually see it. Right? And be done with it. So that your attention is no longer able to become absorbed in these artificial concerns you have about your life and the circumstances and the people. It has achieved some discrimination. Viveka means the discrimination between that which is real and that which is unreal. Is that about right? And that's what these dristis are purposed to do, isn't it? Right? Is to break our tendency to become preoccupied with that which is not real. Not only is it not real, it is worthless, it is useless. It has no value, insignificance whatsoever. The other thing that our attention tends to wander towards and get involved in, absorbed in, is this whole business about our suffering. You see? That takes on a very emotional quality because, again, a lot of your time is spent sitting brooding. Isn't it? Just brooding. You're not asleep, you're not drowsy, you're awake, right? But you are using that whole allotted time for your meditation to brood. constantly thinking about who have wronged you. You follow me? Going into all kinds of emotional states sitting there. You sit and meditating, and the longer you sit, the angrier you get. You get up from your meditation, you so goddamn. What kind of meditation have you been doing? You've been meditating on anger. Fundamentally. Or you get up from meditation, you run and cook that food. You've been meditating on food. Or you get up and you, honey, I'm finished. You know what you've been meditating on. So there's a lot of emotional drama associated with the failure to enjoy those dishes. You see? But you're preoccupied with suffering and how to bring that suffering to an end and who's responsible for it and so forth and so on. So you have to get clear about all of that. A lot of the time in that particular mode of Shetpa is spent lamenting and blaming, reviewing and blaming, locating culprits, people responsible for your suffering, who's getting on a review of who's getting on your goddamn nerves, you see? And all of that kind of business, you see? And you simply have to realize that you are the sole source of all your suffering. You have to handle all of that understanding that pertains to dealing with suffering, you see. Much more can be said about how to resort to these samyamas, these points of views that are represented by these various disciplines for the sake of liberating your attention from its preoccupation and this whole matter pertaining to concentration and meditation and vichetta, role of frustrating that ambition. Let's go to a third one quickly here. Now, if you can get past obstacle number 2, Carl has another one waiting for you. So even if you can get past semi-consciousness and wake up fully and get past the distraction and all of this that is associated with Vichetta and all of that, you know what I mean? If you can become still now, you see? The mind is not running to the world, it's not running to your business that you got to take care of tomorrow and later on tonight and all of that. You see, those things are no longer able to absorb your attention, to distract you. Then what Carl does now is use some of your old samskaras to distract you. Interesting. You pull out some old shit, you know what I mean? And put up in your mind. This is called Monorajya. But this is like it's a state of mind where you get into something very similar to life review. You start reviewing your failures that you've had in life. And in that review, you start making plans on how to correct that. It is very subtle. Because you really are, to some degree, You know what I mean? Focus. But you focused on that. You see my point? You're not distracted by a car horn blowing. You're not distracted by what you got to do later today. None of that stuff is any longer able to distract you. But what you are absorbed with now is this kind of review of your life. And all of the things that didn't work for you. All of the things that went wrong, the failures. And then you make plans on how to overcome the failures that you've had in your life. And this can become a very intense activity. And from the outside, it would even look like somebody if somebody was looking at you, because it will really be deep. The body really will be very still. And of course, the danger of this obstacle is that you can waste the entire time allotted for meditation in this kind of review. This is a big one. This is hard because, it will include all of the philosophizing, samyama doing, critical reviews, critical thinking. All of that is a part of this obstacle. And that's a hard one to get past. You see? In my own case, that was by far the most difficult. The other two wasn't too bad, but number 3, that kicked my ass. You know what I mean?
It's like a more subtle form of fantasizing because you're taking the past.
Yeah. It's still a part of all of that, you see? But it is specifically focused in on now. That's the serious thinking that you do. You see my point? I mean, there's something serious about it. It's not frivolous and so forth. Yes, Brother?
How about like when you get certain insights?
Yeah, even all of that.
Revelations.
All that, insights, revelation, all of that is because you got an insight into how you can avoid that same mistake in the future. You see my point? Or you got an insight on how you can now do this. You see?
Comes at this level too.
Yeah. Yes.
Deep thinking.
Deep thinking. You know what I mean? Reflection. Deep reflection. Contemplating. Deep contemplation of your life. You see my point?
Can it kind of be done? For me, I still feel like at times I have the simmering in front, and that's up underneath. Like I can still, it's not that.
Can't do it. Can't do it. It is a barrier against and an obstacle to. You can have simmering, but it's not concentrated. It's useless. It's mechanical. That's what the mystic call mechanical simmering. It is valueless. Has no value whatsoever. It is a kind of trivial simmering. You know what I mean? It doesn't really even have your attention. Your attention is really in this. You see, that's like background.
It's like a song.
You see, it's not serious at all.
Like a song playing in the background.
That's all it is. You see my point?
So when you allow yourself to think about anything else, you dissipate.
At the time of simmering, that is what you are supposed to be doing. Not reviewing your old life. You see? So the car pushed that obstacle there. I mean, when I said the car pushed, I'm being very metaphorical, right? There's no guy up there with horns in his head. You know what I mean? Spying on you. You know what I mean? I am simply speaking symbolically here, metaphorically. But this Manarajya, you see, this third obstacle, this big, huge. It's far more satisfying than all of the other two. You see, you don't tend to enjoy your practice when you're semi-conscious. I mean, you're not even available for any enjoyment of practice. You're semi-conscious, you see. And at the level of Kshetriya, you see, you're all over the place, so that's not enjoyable either, particularly, right? But at this level here, I mean, you feel like you're getting,
like
You getting some, you doing something. I mean, it feels like you really getting something out of it. This is, you begin to say, yeah, this, yeah, I need to do this. Let me go meditate on this. You know what I mean? I mean, you even start using that kind of language, don't you? I gotta sit down and meditate on this. You know, I gotta review this deeply. You follow me? Seriously, intelligently, full of purpose. Because when you are encountering this obstacle, you know, you really have as a goal some kind of way to really improve your life. Raja is the ego's attempt to improve its condition. I mean, you know the ego is serious about that shit, don't you? Don't you know that? Yeah, you know that story. It's very serious about that. How can I compensate for what's gone wrong? How can I overcome the failures? What plans I can take? What actions can I do to make my life better? And that's serious for the point of view of an ego, right? And it feels significant. The danger, of course, of this obstacle is that you can waste the entire allotted time for your practice doing this. Now, the fourth major of the being, even if you can get past that, and you get into some semblance, and you're able to hold that, and you can keep your attention focused on this semblance. You see, the withdrawal process can begin to occur in your case, you see, and the inner experience open up to you, right? And these inner experiences, these initial inner experiences that you have, right, lights and so forth and so on, are full of so much pleasure and satisfaction. You know what I mean? I mean, you really, for the first time now, is capable of enjoying your meditation. I mean, now you actually enjoying this thing. Right? You're getting a taste. And so the fourth major obstacle now is the obstacle of inner experiences of self. What they have called rasa sa'ada. You know what rasa means? This experience of inner experiences of visions and lights and sounds and so forth, mystical experiences, if you will, occur as a result of your ability to become focused, concentrated. And you become content and complacent with that level of progress. That is what makes it an obstacle. You fail to continue to put forth effort to move on. This, of all the obstacles, is the greatest. Very difficult. And it's this kind of obstacle, without the guru, you will never be able to move beyond it, because you will become complacent, contented with the initial mystical experience that comes from the first levels of concentration. You won't want to go any further. Why put forth any more effort? You know what I mean? You're done. There's that feeling. This is it. So very briefly then, I have outlined for you those four major inner obstacles that will confront you as it has confronted every Paramathi since time immemorial. And you simply must become capable of overcoming those obstacles, you see. And those obstacles, along with the fundamental obstacle of your Kusang, is what must be handled. That's the business that's got to be handled. Now, with all of that said, immediately the outline has been brief, but you are intelligent people here, and you have cooler mates who are intelligent people as well. And my hope is that you all will use the time allotted afterwards for your cooler group meeting to really unpack all of this. You see, and fill in all the pieces that I had to, because of lack of time, skip past, okay? So y'all clean it up for me, you see? But in the remaining 25 minutes that we have here, I'm willing to go over and into greater detail about any of these obstacles that we have discussed. And if you have no questions, then we'll proceed to cool. Yes, beloved?
On the last one, the inner
Rasa.
experiences,
Yes.
and you were saying this is where you really need the guru.
Yes. Yeah. Because you see, remember yesterday I said that when you practice meditation, and you can almost see the parallel here, that there are certain kinds of developmental stages you go through in terms of your own emotional and subjective reaction to practice. At first, practicing, it's like licking a dry stone. Hence, the experiences of meditating is one of irksomeness. You know what I mean? It's bothersome. You know, it gets on your nerves, so forth. But as you become more proficient at it, and you get better at it, and you move to the next level, then that irksomeness transitions itself and turns into the experience of joy. You begin to enjoy it, you see, and then peace, and then love. You know, we outline all of that. Well, it's something like that, you see, beloved. Certainly by the time you're able to become capable of simmering to the point of concentration, to the point of having some mystical experiences, and you will have some mystical experiences, you will automatically become fascinated with it. In fact, some people become so fascinated with these mystical inner experiences that they confuse that with becoming enlightened. Enlightenment is way beyond and has nothing to do with inner mystical experiences. You see, that's no sign of enlightenment because you've seen an orb of light floating around somewhere. I heard some twinkling somewhere in the background. That doesn't mean you're enlightened. You just had a mystical experience. And what the neophyte doesn't realize is just an experience. Mystical, yes, but it's an experience, and therefore it suffers from what all experiences suffer from. And what do all experiences suffer from?
Sensation.
Impermanence. You know, throw a shoe at you. No, I'm only teasing. Impermanence, which is the sensation. It is impermanent. And in that sense, you see, mystical inner experiences is no more significant than these outer experiences. That's why you get all hung up in them. You see, you have to return to the nitya drishti. You follow me? To really appreciate that. So in that sense, you see, beloved, and it's rasa. Rasa means joy, pleasure.
So what you're saying is, but at this point, once you get to this point, this is the guru is what?
Yeah, I mean,
It's the force that helps you.
yeah, the guru is helping you through all
All
of
of
it.
it. I
Right.
understand.
But this is a particular point that is really critical to have your guru. Because let's say if your guru is passed, you see, and you get somewhere afterwards to a point where you're able to have some inner mystical experience of the pleasurable variety, well, you have no outward guru here to check you, to push you beyond that. You become very complacent unless you are lucky enough to have the company of the guru's successor, if the guru is appointed a successor or something, you see. Otherwise, your progress pretty much ends there until the next birth and the next guru comes along. That's not such a bad way to go out. You misunderstand? But certainly it does not fulfill the entire potential of the spiritual process. You're just getting started, you know. Anything else about any of it? Yes? Yes?
Did you say?
And then Namaji, where's Dhammamai? Dhammamai, get your record, beloved.
Did I hear you correctly when you said did you say the physical to have, okay, if your master is, has left the body and you
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You see, at least in Radha-Swami metaphysics, you know, now it depends on the Satmar tradition that one checks with. There's various different interpretations about that. In Radha-Swami faith and metaphysics, the position is that when one's guru is no longer in the body, then one needs to take the help of the guru's successor. Where that is not the case or not possible in that disciple's case, you see, then that disciple's progress can become stuck until after the time of death. You follow what I'm saying? And then after the time of death, then that guru who has initiated the person can work with you again, because that guru is already gone from this plane, and you are now coming off of it, can hook you up. You know what I mean? So that's one of the points of view about it. The other thing is that even if you are able to continue to practice the sadhana that your guru during his lifetime or her lifetime gave you, and are able to make some progress, you see, without the company of a living guru or a sangha or a guru bhai or brothers or sisters, then there's every possibility to become stuck at this level, deluded into thinking that this is as far as it goes. You see, I'm able to see, you know, some light inside here, a little bit of sugar. You see, I've attained, and without the community of fellow disciples of that same Buddha said, no, beloved, you didn't attain. Remember, Maharaji always said, you know, to push you on, and you'll become very complacent. So I meant it in that sense, you see. But it is definitely a big obstacle, because who wants to, you know, set aside the pleasurable experiences that you can have inside? I mean, that's, you know what I mean? That's some real good stuff. Yes, beloved. Nabaji, I'm sorry. Thank you, Dhammamaj. Namaji.
Could you talk about Mithya?
Mithya. Mithya Drishti is really a profound consideration of the nature of impermanence. It's the Buddhist argument. You see, impermanence was not something first articulated by Buddha. When Buddha articulated his arguments on impermanence, he was simply following a long line of sages and mystics who have articulated the same thing. Although Buddha brought it to a whole new level of eloquence and detail, but certainly there was nothing novel about it. And the essential point, beloved, is that you must at some point stand back and examine your experience and everything around you and really see that nothing is permanent. Everything is impermanent. Now, this seeing itself results in a new kind of disposition in you, or should. Or does it to the degree that you appreciate and see the impermanence, nature of things? That new disposition is free from clinging and grasping. That's the principal thing that characterizes that disposition. That disposition remains the case even when you practice it. You follow me? It's not just an open-eyed disposition. Even when you sit, it's still your same disposition. And the advantage now is that because you have that disposition, you are not so easily distracted and become lost and over concerned about that which is not even permanent in the first place, you see. I mean, think about it, beloved. From your point of view, nothing you think about is trivial to you. That's all important shit. It's only trivial from a higher point of view. But for you, that's not trivial. You know what I mean? But you're going to wear today, and it's not trivial for you. I mean, that's important. What you're going to eat, that's real important for you. And it's important because of lack of understanding. But as long as you are still feeling that it's important, you will be distracted by it. Your attention will go to it because that is something important.
So your attention going to it is the thing?
Yes, your attention going to it and trying to cling to it, stay with it, resolve it, hold on to it. I mean, it's all kinds of different ways to look at it. And when you all start cooling, I hope you start doing some of that. Look at the various ways in which clinging manifests itself in your own experience. You see, what does clinging and grasping look like in your life? See it. See those instances, things, circumstances, situations where you are clinging. See it clearly. You follow me? And then go further into what is the basis of this clinging. What is the justification for the clinging? How do you justify holding on? You justify saying that's important. You don't say, well, Bhagwan, I'm trying to really come to this because this is so trivial. No. You know, I'm going to work my ass off to achieve this triviality. It's not never like that. It is always appearing to be very important. And then you begin to look and see what is this importance based on, you see. It's based on the presumption that it's going to be lasting. You know, I'm going to get a return on this investment. You know? That's what makes it so important for me to put all this energy in, because this is going to last me all of my life. You know what I mean? And it's not.
Yeah, but everybody has the priority of sustaining themselves in the material world. Because if you don't eat, your body going to die.
Yeah.
You know, so you know there's certain things that you have to do in order to maintain your existence on this plane. And then there's a fear involved if you just drop it.
Yeah, I understand and hear exactly what you're saying. And it's an excellent issue, too. But you have to appreciate, beloved, that the mystics are talking about a different thing when they talk about these kind of desires versus necessities. You have to enjoy the distinction between the two. All right? There is a necessity. And we are to live that yoga of necessity. You see, food is necessary. You follow what I mean?
Overindulgence of it.
You see? Right. The overindulgence in food is what is not necessary. You have to be, you see, clinging and grasping, beloved, is based on the presumption that you need that thing to be happy. There must have been a video somewhere below. I don't know if he sent it to you. We talked about overcoming and breaking the need connection. You didn't? So maybe the law will find it for you. You see. Most of our connection to things, people, places, events, circumstances in this world is based on the presumption, beloved, that we need them in order to be happy. Now, I'm not going to exhaust this argument because it's an old, ancient argument. I've talked about it. But for the sake of your question, just a few things should be said to remind you about it all. So the presumption is that I need this man to be happy, or I need this woman to be happy. It's a